Great. Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this roundtable as part of our ongoing series in Social Chrysalis. So if you've been to these in the past, you have some idea of what the Social Chrysalis platform is. And if you came to this roundtable from another announcement, I think probably from Rebecca's Raising the Vibe group, let me just speak really quickly about Social Chrysalis. My name is Stephen Donaco. I'm the founder of the Social Chrysalis platform. Basically, in a nutshell, Social Chrysalis exists to help teach people the skills of conscious evolution and how to apply them very practically in the real world. And it was inspired by my work with Barbara Marx Hubbard. So with that, let me introduce Rebecca Becker, who is the host of the roundtable tonight. Rebecca is a faculty member on Social Chrysalis, and actually the group of panelists that are on tonight are participants in the program that Rebecca teaches. She's also founder and executive director of Raising the Vibe, a group of seekers who study, explore, and experience what brings peace, joy, and fulfillment to the human spirit. Raising the Vibe's goal is to be part of the global dialogue that encourages mindfulness in our world, our closest relationships, and in our own hearts. So with that, without any further ado, I hand it off to Rebecca. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a pleasure being with you all tonight. As a little bit of background on me, about 3 years ago, I had kind of an abrupt spiritual awakening where some things happened in my world that just didn't make any logical sense. I was a pretty logical, linear thinker, and some things just shook me up. So at that point, I decided to turn to my religious and spiritual friends, Becca Winnica being one of them, to say, what the heck is going on here? And it really led me to just start questioning my world a little bit. And I came down to two key questions that I asked, really, I guess, my higher self, which was, is there an invisible flow of energy that connects people and that causes effects in our world? So how does energy flow between people and things? And is it interconnected? And what do all religions have in common throughout time and throughout history? So with those two questions, I set about my task of figuring it out. And mainly it was through books. I started really at the intersection of science and spirituality. A couple of the first books I read were The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins, and The Biology of Belief was very instrumental for me by Dr. Bruce Lipton. I really needed to understand the science part so I could really take more of a leap of faith with the spiritual aspects of it. So from there, I just started 3 years ago following the breadcrumbs, trying to figure out this new world. And one of the first tools that I came across was something called human design. And that really rocked my world, where somebody said, well, do you need to wait to take action, or are you a manifester and can you just initiate? I'm like, well, what does that mean? And so I got my human design read and realized that I was an ego authority manifester, which means I was more of a catalyst to others. So I thought, well, if this is the case, I better get busy doing what I'm supposed to do so other people can do what they're supposed to do. So with that, I then started exploring some of the other tools that are similar, the Enneagram, the Gene Keys, which is an offshoot of human design, and the Akashic Records. And throughout this process, I started really going through a lot of energy healers to really starting to kind of deprogram some of the things that were in my psyche so I could really uncover my true essence. And then Stephen came to me and said, would you be willing to create a course? And I was like, well, what would I do? And I just know how purpose-driven I was. I'm like, you know what, these tools seem to really help me. Why don't I get a group of people who are experts in them, because I'm not, and interview them and just kind of make a conglomeration of finding your unique gifts and higher purpose through these wonderful tools. So with that, I'm going to just introduce each of the panelists. I'll do it one by one, and then they're going to spend 5 minutes or so talking about the tool that they're an expert on, and then we'll go to the next panelist, and then we're going to have some time where we're just asking questions, and the whole panel is going to be interacting, and the audience is going to be able to ask questions for the last 30 minutes. So we'll cue you in, and you can even then, if you're brave, be promoted to a panelist temporarily and ask your question on screen. And this will be recorded for Social Chrysalis, and it'll be sent out to all the people who had signed up for this event. So with that, I'm going to like to introduce Dr. Nicholas Demetri. Dr. Nick was somebody I met early on in the journey and had a couple sessions with him personally. And he immediately just connected with Raising the Vibe and volunteered to be, he was our first outside speaker. And and he spoke about his book, The Divine Partnership. And he's written other books, including The Hidden Codes of Revelations. He is a holistic psychiatrist trained at Emory, and he also takes people on sacred tours around the country for all the sacred spiritual sites. So with that, Dr. Demetri, I'd love for you to come on, say a little bit, anything else I missed about your background that you think is pertinent, but also just really talk about the Enneagram. And I know you've written a book on the Enneagram too, so happy to have you.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. Just very briefly, in terms of my work, I'm a psychiatrist by training. I do a lot of spiritually oriented psychotherapy, past life regression, work a lot with sound healing now and voice analysis, and do a lot of seminars about meditation practice and healing, primarily in Europe, but also in the US. I've been very happy to be a member and speaker with Raise the Vibe. It's a great organization, and I look forward to continuing with it. Thank you for starting and organizing it. So I'm going to talk briefly about the Enneagram. It was a big challenge. I think I had 5 minutes to speak about something that I'm still studying, feeling I'm kind of still retarded about, but I'm trying my best. But the Enneagram is a wonderful way to understand your personality. So I tried to figure out what's a good definition of the Enneagram. Enneagram itself means 9 points from the Greek language, enneagrammis, 9 points on the human condition, 9 personality types, but a lot more. The Enneagram is a multi-dimensional archetypal symbol of sacred geometry that offers an understanding of your personality traits as well as your spiritual gifts and purpose. I was first introduced to the Enneagram in 1990, and I read a book by Helen Palmer on the recommendation of a friend who said, you're going to love this stuff. It's going to just jive right in with your practice and your better understanding of people. You're going to probably make them think you're a real psychic, vibing them out. But if you know their personality type, you can tell them everything about themselves, you know, kind of thing. So I said, oh, I like that. So I started reading it. And when I got to certain points in the book, I was amazed at how I was touched really deeply by the truth of myself, how I operate, my motivations, my aspirations, as well as that of the people in my life, my family members, my friends, my enemies, how to develop more compassion for everyone. And it gave me a wonderful tool to study myself and others. Now, the Enneagram has been applied in business, for example, to assess and to identify talents, skills, and capabilities of people. Spiritual development, in terms of finding your unique path to higher consciousness. Not everyone is a meditator. Other people have other ways to reach their God source inside. Also, in terms of psychology, understanding your unconscious motivations and behaviors. It's been used in team development in order to create more synergy among the different talents and abilities people have. Relationships leading to compassion and acceptance. The dynamics even of product development, steps to be taken as you move through that, and also just discovering your purpose, gifts, and talents. And I think this is one of the biggest ones. Every point, there are 9 personality types, universal types. They each have a higher gift, and that higher gift can range from being really talented and gifted at mediation, at quality control, at diplomacy, at creating products, at originality, research, you know, whistleblowers. Also, you know, just in terms of planning and also leadership. And we need all kinds of people in the world to make this thing work in teamship. And so the Enneagram for me has been a really wonderful tool to help me discover not only in myself, my own qualities, my strengths and weaknesses, but also to help other people do the same. And I think that the thing that really struck me very deeply is that, you know, it's a lifelong study, and one can take a test to determine one's Enneagram structure, and that's the first step. And from there, studying yourself. It's, you know, the old adage of Socrates, know thyself. The Enneagram is the one system that allows you entrance into that inner world of self-knowledge. I don't know if I took 5 minutes, but I did it.
I don't know. So just to recap, we did put a few of these tools like in the module that I've developed that's on sale for Social Chrysalis. Dr. Dimitri goes into much deeper about all the 9 types, the high side, the low side. But in the chat, Robert has put a couple of the links that Dr. Dimitri has recommended to get your test. There's one that's free and there's one that's $10. So that is in the chat. So I would recommend anybody who has not taken the Enneagram to go ahead and take note of these links to be able to do that, because it's very helpful to really understand yourself. For example, like when I found out that I was an 8, I mean, and then people who know the Enneagram, it's like, oh, you're an 8, you know, like, okay, you know, so it really helps you, and it helps you know yourself, and it helps other people go, oh yeah. And then, but anyway, it's a fantastic tool with high sides and low sides, but there's so much to it. But thanks for that brief introduction. That was perfect.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
All right, and then I'm going to introduce our next panelist, Karen McMullen. Stephen Donaco introduced us when we were putting this program together, and he suggested that, you know, Karen is an author, but she definitely has a lot of skills and knowledge about human design. So she has written The Alchemy of Consciousness. She guides women through their awakening process, and she has a great example of that because she really left the corporate world and became a salsa dancer as well as other things. So she is living in Mexico, living her true self, so different than where she was in life. And she's guiding so many women, but she is an expert on human design. So with that, I'm going to let her tell us a little bit about this tool briefly. Go, Karen.
Oh, thank you so much. What a fun introduction. Sadly, I'm not actually living in Mexico anymore.
Oh, you're not?
No, I came back to Canada as a result of COVID. All sorts of changes. I'm sure I'm not the only one. But I'll just say a quick plug for Enneagram, because my mom trained in the Enneagram when I was a kid. And so that was kind of the vocabulary I was raised with. And it's such an amazing shortcut, because the moment you know someone's Enneagram, and even if you don't know it, you can really see it with people. You can see, oh, that person's, you know, an achiever, that person's a helper. And you know, I'm the tragic romantic, or the 4, the artist. So, you know, just by saying that is a shortcut for you to know more about me, and then for me to know more about you. And I think it just really makes the world easier when we all know these things. So, and human design, you know, it's similar in that it is a typology. I'm just going to make sure that you actually can see my screen before assuming. Yeah, okay. Great. So yeah, it's another way to look at yourself. It's another way to understand yourself. And it basically generates a chart. It's a system that was mystically downloaded. It's a man named Ra Uruhu. He was had a mystical experience where a voice spoke to him for 8 days and 8 nights and gave him this information. And it's, you know, it's from the stars. It's magical. And I actually find that explanation more believable than the idea that a human could have come up with this, because when you look up your chart, it's going to look something like this. Okay, it's going to have 9 different centers. Each of these little things is a center. and the center is either going to be colored in or it will be left blank. And this shows basically how energy runs in your system. Each one of these little numbers here is has a lot of meaning to it. It's based on the I Ching, which is a really profound text. And our Sherry, our Gene Keys lady, will tell us more about that, I'm sure. And so this chart really just has so much information in it about who you are here to be, how you can make decisions that are really going to honor yourself, where you're likely to be influenced by others and potentially even conditioned. And conditioning is a big word in human design because basically the premise is that, we are here to listen to our body's guidance and to follow that in order to navigate our path. And along that path, we are going to be conditioned by outside forces, and that conditioning can potentially take us off course. And so, in my story, I was off course in being really materially focused a lot on money and income generation, and moving to Mexico and dancing, and that was all coming from just following my aliveness. So when you look at your chart, you're going to see four main things that are really valuable to understand about yourself. And the first one is your type. And this is what I focused on in the program that we're talking about tonight, because basically if you understand your type, there are four different types: the generator, the projector, the manifestor, and the reflector. When you understand this about yourself, it basically explains how you are designed to function mechanically in the world. And the idea here is that there are four different types of auras. And that means that you don't stop here at the physical body. You actually have an energetic presence that extends out from you. And that energetic presence has certain properties. So for example, the generator, which makes up 70% of the planet, has an attractive aura that's really enveloping. And so generators can really get close easily with each other, but they're drawing to them everything that's right for them. And so they don't need to go after things and make it happen like we're conditioned to think. They can actually trust that the things that are right for them in life are going to come to them. And that is a dramatically different way than most of us are taught, versus some people who are manifestors. If they're waiting around for everything to come to them, it's not coming. They have to go after it. They have to create it. So it explains a lot. And when you're connecting, if you're a generator connecting with a manifestor, it also explains how those two auras come together or don't, and it can really just make your relationships a lot more harmonious and help you to honor other people. So yeah, there's so much to share about human design, and I'll just share that if you want to look up your chart, I like this website, humandesignamerica.com. And then you can just /chart, and you can enter in your data. You do need to know your birth time. And then you can get your free chart. So I think I'll leave it there.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much, Karen. That was a great little intro to give them a taste of all this. I know everybody's going to want their chart if they haven't done it so far. It's also in the chat, and the humandesignamerica.com. And then I think we put the Jovian archive as well in the chat. So make sure you take that down and pull your human design chart. Great.
And I just love it that you're a manifestor and an 8. Wow.
I know, the leader, man. Yeah, I know. Powerful energy for all those friends around me. But yeah. Anyway, The next guest is going to be Sherry Herndon. Again, Stephen introduced me to Sherry. She's a scholar of the gene keys, studied many years this new modality, as well as other spiritual teachings. She has a passion for regenerative culture and community and movement building, which she has done through many media channels. Again, the Gene Keys is an offshoot of human design in the I Ching. And it's personally one of my favorite tools. It really resonated with me. I read the book and I'd kind of gone back and forth and pulled it out many times to really understand it. But the two key factors for me were it really says what your life's purpose is, and it gives you the low side and the high side, and it gives you at the top your life's work, which is different than your life's purpose. And it shows you, and Sherry will talk about this a little bit more, but the shadows you have to go through to really get, to become your true soul essence. So with that, I'm going to let Sherry take it from there.
You need to unmute yourself.
There we go. Feels so good to be here. Thank you so much. I love this conversation. Feel honored to be invited. I wouldn't say I'm a scholar. I would say I'm passionate about all the tools for personal and collective transformation. And I was introduced to the Gene Keys by my friends, Teresa Collins and Shiloh Boss, who worked with Richard in 2011. And then my first reading was done in 2012 by Richard. And I did a series of interviews with him on my radio show. So one of the things I love, I think it was touched on by you, Karen, about that it grew out of human design, and Richard Rudd was a key student of Ra Uru Uru's. I always say his name wrong. I hope that was right. And then he had his own awakening experience. And when I did my interview with him, I had to really go look at what does it mean to have a transmission? What is a transmission? And it was like, well, the I Ching. So the Gene Keys is built on the I Ching, which is 8 hexagrams, 8 by 8, 64. So there's underlying principles of the universe, and that transmission is what in Sanskrit is called a terma, which is hidden treasure. So someone is bringing it through. And Richard said, the Gene Keys is like the Course of Miracles for our times. So this is different than getting an astrology reading, which is great. Have an astrology reading, get a reading. But with the Gene Keys, you are really invited to go on a journey into knowing yourself. And I was just reflecting on what are, the codes of consciousness, actually, that the DNA in your body. Think about this for a moment. So there is no junk DNA. You have 5 billion miles on the conservative side of DNA coil in your body, waiting to be unlocked. These tools, all of them, are designed to unlock those. So the Gene Keys have, one of the things that Richard likes to say is that they're like tools for seeing where's your highest gift and where's the shadow. What's the thing that gets in the way? And as we like to say, instead of avoiding the shadow, which a lot of us have been trained to do, don't deal with the shadow, don't deal with the shadow in your relationships, and your culture, put it over there, is that actually you allow, accept, and embrace the shadow to release the gift to embody your divinity, embody your highest expression, which is was so thrilling. How am I doing on time? Okay, I have 2 more minutes. Yeah. There's so much to say. So that we're really in this great shift right now of going from our victim consciousness into our freedom on the planet. And this tool, the Gene Keys, is like a very refined way. You get a profile, genekeys.com, free profile, get the book, go on a journey. There's so much. There's the life's work. There's your evolution. There's your inner radiance. There's your life purpose. There's what are you attracting? Your IQ, your EQ, your emotional intelligence, your SQ, your culture, your vocation, your pearl. All of those are these different aspects of your life. too much to go into right now, but just imagine that each of those spheres have a gene key associated with them. And they're giving you insights into that area of your life. Like someone said, know thyself. If that's the thing. What are we doing to know ourselves? Like, where are we learning that? In school, by our parents, in whatever. It's like so many ways of finding out how to do that. And the gene keys for me has been the most impactful way for me to know myself, to take responsibility for my shadows, and then to work the relational field. So I'll just say with the last few seconds here that the gene keys is divided into 3 sections. The profile, when you get it, you have 11 spheres out of 64, but every key has a programming partner. So that means you have 22. And then every key is related to a codon ring. That's a whole nother level. So basically you have all these aspects, the shadow aspects, the victim consciousness to the divinity. And then you get to find ways of seeing yourself in relationship to your gifts, as well as in relationship to how are we healing our hearts, healing our relationships, and releasing our genius through understanding that we are actually unlocking the codes of those 5 billion miles of DNA.
Perfect. So powerful. Thank you so much, Jerry. Great. I'd love to introduce Susan Shire next. And again, I found Susan, there's no coincidences in life, but I found her through a Google search. So I'm like, I think I need to know about my Akashic record. Now I've heard that. So I Googled, and then she popped up first, and then it just happened to connect in with her. And I'm like, oh, she had an appointment like the next week. And it was just so serendipitous. I'm like, all right, I think I was meant to know Susan. So she is the founder of Soul Mastery. She's written several books about, really understanding your higher self or your soul. And she uses her beloveds, I guess she channels in what she calls her beloveds, who she's a medium and intuitive healer. And what else, Susan, did I miss about all your skills here? Go ahead, and you can tell them about yourself, and then just jump into the Akashic Records and how that helps find your higher purpose.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rebecca. I will never forget us meeting because it was such fun. It was just so buoyant, and it's like, oh, okay, here we are again. Talk about soul connection and meeting again on the path. And that's what I love about what I do. There's this feeling that we're all part of the people that I speak to and work with. It's been 27 years. That we're part of the same soul families, and we're here to do something together. And through the Akashic Records drawing us together, it's like, oh, this communion, connection, and oh my gosh, here I am, part of something. Because everyone wants to be part of something larger, wants to belong, wants to feel connected. And one of the ways the Akashic Records and what I do, which I call Soul Mastery, which actually the subtitle of the first book is Accessing the Gifts of Your Soul. And of course, it's related to your higher purpose for sure. But what it gives you is a sense of connection, because all of us want greater connection to the universe, to our guidance, to others. This is what we're craving right now in the world more than anything. And what I love about working with the Akashic Records of your soul and your gifts is discovering that and opening that for you, because there's nothing better than feeling like you belong to not only your soul family and your universal dimension, but that you feel seen and understood here. So many of us have felt as though I'm this odd person on the planet, and I sure wish I could figure out who I am because I don't fit to anything. And what I love to do is bring people into an experience of themselves at a very visceral level of what that feels like to be connected to infinite possibilities for creation again, and live from that place. So what I do that I developed after a few years was I went, I know we're from different star systems. I know we're from different places. I'm a very practical person. But for some reason, I got myself out in the stars. I'm really my key here my gene key, all of that is about being a what I call a blueprint deliverer. I'm here to bring everyone their fulfillment and success, my divine cheerleader self. But I wanted to connect, feel that connection for everyone to feel as though they have a sensation of purpose here. And I love everything that everyone's brought so far, because when I started 27 years ago, most of this wasn't here. And it's so exciting to feel like there is a garden of possibilities to open up our higher self, our soul, our connection. But one of the things that I do that I love, besides helping people clear their challenges, their woundedness, which is all just the wound of separation, clear it at a soul level, way beyond even just this incarnation, beyond past lives, but beyond before we even did Earth incarnations, which is where some of our greatest challenges came from, on our way to this beloved planet called planet Earth. So when you clear something from that level, poof, it's all gone. And you don't have to spend so much time working on your family issues, which are getting a little boring these days for most of us. But the other thing I do is to help people go on a journey to connect to their soul gifts, and their home worlds and their sense of purpose and all of that. So you can feel it viscerally and you can hold it in your body and you can feel like you are a man or woman of light bringing this in. And you know that for yourself. So this is my love of doing that. And I think that's all I need to say. It's just so great to be with this group. And, you know, again, pieces of the pie. We all have so much to offer. Thank you, Rebecca, for seeing so many of us as valuable ingredients.
Perfect. Thanks, Susan.
Mm.
Then our last panelist is Becca Winnica. She is a dear friend of mine and really kind of was one of my allies. You know, definitely we realized we were soul family right away when we met. I guess was it 6 years ago or so, and she's been right there with me when I had the awakening 3 years ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this doesn't make any sense. And she's like, well, let me tell you. And then we just started the journey together, and I remember actually having a conversation with her to say, because Becca grew up very religious, and I'm like, what do you think about energy, and do you believe in meridians and chakras? And she's like, yeah, I think I do. I'm going to learn more about it. I can't believe it. And now this is your job. So Becca was a psychotherapist and has dove in so much to the energy healing world that she's actually given up her therapist license to be full-time specialized kinesiologist. So with that, I will let her take it from there.
Thanks, Rebecca. It's great to be here with everybody. What a special group of souls. I really, Rebecca nailed it. I mean, it's a transition for me into a world of energy that beautifully married my backgrounds together. And so what I get to do is a joy every day. It really brings a smile to my face. I thought today, I was like, I love what I get to do, because people get introduced to themselves for the first time. Through muscle testing, we are accessing the needles in the haystack in terms of what has been the barriers and the obstacles of a person getting to their truest, highest self. And those can come in at all ages and all times, but through the muscle testing and accessing that unconscious, subconscious layer, the package of specialized kinesiology involves brain integration. So there's neuroemotional pathways that have carried fear. And the muscle testing can get it is down as close as possible as the body would like to go in terms of age, that something might have started to just lay that pathway. It could be inherited. So it could be an epigenetic layer that we can then de-stress using acupressure touch, and bringing the body's attention to itself and pulling that stress using the meridians and the acupressure points and saying, hey, body, let's say if it's fear, you know, pulling those fear layers out, pulling those programs out that were attached to fear, so that there's greater access to healing energy for the body to flow towards its truer, higher self. And so a lot of people don't know themselves. when they come to this work, or they think they have an idea, but they know that something is stuck and they know that something is not right. And so that's the beautiful part of the specialized world of kinesiology, is that it can go and unpack in the order that the body knows that it needs that particular program or stressor to be pulled out in order to get to the next one. So the body is the roadmap, and that person is their own roadmap. I'm just facilitating, and that's what I get to hold space for. And then my background as a psychotherapist comes into play, because that's what I love to do for people. It's sacred space to be in that depth of oneself and that intimate with oneself, and needing a safe witness. And so, for example, if a program is running that life's tough, unconsciously, then a person's going to generate a tough life. And so that can be a part of a person being introduced to this new energy and this new higher self that's like, we've got life. We're going to take this new energy and channel it towards who we are, and using these other gifts that we have, like the gene keys and human design and Akashic records. Like, these are all pieces that then a person can truly almost meet themselves for the first time. So that's the joy of what I get to do every day with kids and adults alike. And they get to walk out lighter and brighter and more radiant with that new flowing energy that is moving towards healing and their highest design, rather than that stressed behind the curtain Oz voice. they get to be introduced to themselves. So that's my world of specialized kinesiology.
Oh, thank you so much, Becca. Perfect. Well, that's all of our panelists tonight. And then I'm going to spend about 20 minutes or 25 minutes just posing some questions for the panelists. And the panelists can just put their hand up if they would like to answer it. And Robert or I will call on you. But my first question is really, I'd love to have anybody who has a real poignant case study to just tell us about someone that you have worked with that has profoundly changed and found themselves and just really just did a 180 and became a different person and found their soul based on your works, just so we can really put in real life personal terms. So if anybody can think of somebody that they want to share, I'd love to have 2 or 3 examples from the panel to really bring it to life for people. Anybody think of anybody they want to, use fictitious names or whatever that they want to bring to light? Yeah, Susan.
Many years ago, a young man came into my office. I was living in Colorado at the time. And at first he didn't tell me, but he had MS. And he didn't want to claim that he had MS. And I was using that wonderful tool called kinesiology as well, with the body and with his soul. And it was so beautiful to work with him. And it didn't take long for him to get to the root of what this MS was about, so he could calm his nervous system. And I just remember how many times he just cried from that sense of A, somebody understands me, and B, there is a way through this. And so he had to do obviously other techniques for his physical, but for him to feel this opening of, I don't have to live with MS the rest of my life. I don't have to be put in that box that I'm handicapped, that I have this limitation, that I can start to breathe through it. And actually, I didn't work with him through the very end of it, because it's, a bit of a journey, but he got that major piece of, I'm going to be okay, and I can walk through this and have the strength I need to let my nervous system actually change this whole pattern from the inside out. So that was one beautiful revelation that just came up instantly when you said that.
Oh, thank you. Perfect. Mm-hmm. What else? Dr. Dimitri.
I had a patient many, many years ago, a lady that came to me. She was a very high-powered businesswoman. She came in a suit. She had heard that other people were doing regression therapy. They were her friends, so she decided she needed to try it too, so she could kind of keep up with everyone. And so she went through a series of 3 sessions. We worked through her chakra energies, her issues. And what she came to realize is that she needed to slow down, but she had no idea how she was going to slow down. She was a 3 on the Enneagram. She was a workaholic. So the first thing that happened was about 2 weeks after the sessions, she went in and she started developing inflammation in her hands. And it took her about 2 months to realize she had become allergic to the ink on the papers on her desk at work. So she had to go through a long journey of about a year to actually heal herself. And she could only do it through holistic means. So the result of it is this woman who was this high-powered business lady, very workaholic, had to slow down to get to know herself. And the first thing that happened to her, which happens to a lot of people that are, suspending their emotions in order to stay addicted to what they do, is she just started crying. And she would cry for no reason. Sometimes she'd cry for hours. She was really, I think, reliving lifetimes of sorrow and grief. And when she finally started coming through it, and it took a while, she actually started going to holistic healers, and she got her own self-education in alternative health, and then she began to work with it. And so she actually was moving into helping people. She was the 3 that was in this position of, the 3 is the performer, and they're working for love, proving themselves. She became more a human being with those that she was with, and then she became a great helper. She became like a mama for all the people around her. And it's just, for me, a wonderful story of how transformation can take place. Sometimes it happens in the most strange, I'm sure all of you have experienced this on some level with yourselves or others. It can happen in an unusual way because the soul really has its agenda, and it finds its way to unravel even the most difficult ego patterns we have.
Oh, perfect. Thanks. Yeah, Sherry.
So I have someone I was working with, kind of coaching for a long time, and in her profile, she didn't want to do her gene keys for a long time. She was resistant to dealing with the shadows, so we were doing other kinds of work. But the minute she saw that in her life's work, the shadow was seriousness, it was like this aha went on for inside of her, and the shadow is seriousness, and then it goes to the gift of delight, and then it goes to ecstasy. So you can see this like progression. So a lot of times we can't even see like, well, where is this going? This energy of like the relationship of this shadow aspect of seriousness. And the minute she kind of could take responsibility and see it, like it's just like more light shining into herself, she was like, Sherry, how have I not seen how I've been keeping myself down with like being so serious? And I was like, oh, yes. And then it was like watching her blossom because of her own self-revelation, being able to see something like a blind spot that she couldn't see. And then watching her like more life unfold out of her. So I think we can all relate to those places where we're like so serious.
Totally. Anybody else want to share any story? Yeah, Becca.
I think of a family, and so they came in together, and mom was near having a stroke. She had had so many migraines, and they were so bad for so long, near hospitalization. And she is, after doing the work and really getting to know herself, unpacking a lot of programs and stress out of her chakras, out of her meridians. I mean, just the whole picture. And her kids, as a single mom, she's now going to pursue energy healing. And she is fully alive. She is fully present. Her children are balancing her. She's balancing them. They're using tools and skills that they learned just from coming. And so I think as a family that heals together, and particularly just being able to support an entire family system, and then to put these tools in the hands of little kids, game changer for life. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. And then Karen, did you have something to share?
Yeah, I'll just share a sweet example that comes to mind of a young woman recently came to me, and she, had gone through abuse as a child, and she is a human design manifestor type, which is, it's the most yang type, so it's quite paradoxical when, especially for a woman, and she's quite a feminine woman. She'd worked a lot in the fashion industry, and really loved beauty, and we talked through her design, and I actually was also doing a channeled reading for her because I channel as well. And um, basically what came through for her is just, as a manifester, nothing that you want is going to come to you. If you have the idea, if you know in your soul what you're really here for, it's not coming to you unless you do it, unless you go for it. And inherent in that is a tremendous amount of fear of rejection, because if you go for it and it doesn't work, then there's the aftermath is this feeling of rejection. And so a lot of manifestors end up dulling themselves down because they don't want to face that fear. And so it was just so beautiful to see that she, to know and see that she knew exactly what she wanted to do. She just wasn't doing it. And so after we spoke, she basically, what she wanted to do was to create a fairy reality where people could rent this space and these costumes that she built, like a fairy wonderland kind of thing, and that they could rent the costumes and do photo shoots in this incredible space. And so I follow her on Instagram, and the things that she creates are unfriggin' believable. They are out of this world. They are otherworldly. Like, you've never seen anything like them. And I just was so inspired to see that that was already in her, and she just needed someone to tell her, like, there's no effing way you're going to create anything in your life unless you just do it. Like, you have to, nothing's going to come, nothing's going to encourage you, you have to do it. And she did, just with that little push.
Yeah.
And I find that with human design, it's not actually really often that it's a huge thing. It's usually just like, I know that. It's like, yeah. That's the response. It's like, oh yeah. This is me.
Sometimes you have to see, sometimes for me, it's just like when you see it on paper, it validates it. It's like stuff but then you see it like your report written, printed out. It's like, okay, it makes it real for you, and it makes you
Yeah.
feel like you can act on it, right? Like
Exactly.
when I found out as a manifestor, I'm like, okay, I know I'm a leader. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to start raising the vibe because nobody's going to do it for me. I am designed perfectly to do this, so I'm going to do it. And if I didn't know that, I don't think I would have been the push to do it if I didn't know that I was a manifestor and that I was supposed to act like that.
Well, yeah, and often, I mean, that's also where the conditioning comes in, because as a manifestor, you probably had a lot of people in your life kind of trying to dull you down a little bit. Like, will you just behave? Will you just be like a normal kid in the class, please? All these generators are a lot easier to handle than you. And so then you start to disconnect from your power.
Right. Yeah. Perfect. Well, at this point, yeah, I thought some of the themes that were kind of coming up in all of these tools were really that there's the shadow, like the low side and the high side, and how you need to really transform the low, and then it becomes this beautiful high. So I'd love to just kind of open that up. If anybody has any thoughts about how there's just really two sides and you really need to work with both. If anybody has any thoughts on that. You can raise your hand. Let's see if I can see you all. Yeah, Sherry. Yeah, perfect. Gene Keys is a perfect one with this.
Yeah, I think I'll just share with one that was big in my life, and I'm pretty sure we've all had this experience, and that is that of judgment. We were probably, most of us had experienced judgment from in our families, or in the school, or kids, or some authority figure. I know I did. My father was extremely judgmental of me. I couldn't do anything right. It was, and he got that from his dad, and kind of all carried on. And when I discovered, this isn't in my profile, but we all have all of them because it's hologenetic. But when it really did it, this key called out to me. And I've worked with a lot of people with this because there's a lot of pain with the judgment. But when you realize that judgment goes, the next expression, because it's like entropic energy, that which is not life-giving, life, it's like entropic energy. When you are lifting up the frequency, more light, more love, like that, like coherent energy, you come to integrity. And it's like, integrity, that's the next expression of judgment. So it's almost like it gives you this courage to kind of be like, okay, I don't have to fight and say no to judgment. It's almost like allowing it to be, because there's something that just wants to heal, be felt, and to be moved through. This is also like grace. And then the highest expression is perfection. So it's like, we're all longing for the most beautiful expression of ourselves. And so when you're feeling that judgment about someone else, all the polarity in the world, kind of realize that maybe what you're looking for is you're looking for that what is that higher expression of like the integrity that you're longing for within your own self, and that more beautiful world that you're here to co-create.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Anything else? Yeah, Susan. You need to unmute. Yep.
Oh, teach me to mute. I'm not designed to mute.
No, me either.
I know, exactly. Oh, many years ago, what I call my guidance collective shared with me that there's a more creative way to work with releasing all the crap that we have got in our hearts, brains, bodies, you name it. And what they showed me, which I have used since then, and I just love, which is again, more of a creative way than just clearing, releasing, getting rid of, and all of that. Nothing wrong with any of that, because I talk about some of that. But if you connect to the quality of spirit that you're looking for, say you want more money, okay? What is the quality of spirit you're looking for? Is it freedom? Is it luxury? Is it a capacity for greater humanity? When you get in touch with that quality, and that's an energy, so you have to connect to a larger field of energy where freedom exists, you pour that into your body. Maybe it's a memory of freedom. When I felt free as a bird, if anyone can remember that. When I felt free as a bird, you pour that into your body, and what we call the lower vibrations of constriction, that I don't have the money, I'm in lack, I'm not free to create what I want to, it dissolves. Because when you bring in something you value more, the other can't exist. It flushes out. And I love that. And it has made so much more heart sense to me because of that. Because then I can create more with, yes, it relates to saying what you want versus what you don't want, but that can be an intellectual exercise. It's like, what is the quality of spirit I really want to embody right now? And give myself permission to do that. And then, as Sherry was saying, you go to a higher level like integrity, and you bring that in, and where did the judgment go? It's gone, because you're living at a place that has much more value to you. So that's what I would bring. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to jump? Karen.
Yeah. The way that I interpret that question, just through the lens of human design, is more that, you know, human design gives us an awareness tool. And so when we see certain things in our chart, it kind of starts to explain why we're experiencing kind of darker aspects. For example, you know, I have gate 59. It is very prominent in my chart. It's the gate of sexuality and intimacy and in the channel of mating, and it basically is a part of the chart that's the most intimate, the most sexual, and it's for me unconscious. And almost all of my early experiences of sexuality were very traumatic, and I just didn't understand why that was a part of my life until human design came along, and I understood, oh, I have an aura that breaks through people's barriers to intimacy, and they can feel my sexual self communicating with them, even though I'm not doing that consciously. And there's a whole thing that's happening aurically that doesn't have anything to do with my personality, and yet is having a deep impact on me and how I live in this world. And so without an understanding of that consciously, I was just going about my life and having difficult experiences without understanding why. And then, you know, by understanding my design and learning about why things are happening, then that allows me to take responsibility for that aspect of myself and to understand that, you know, that I need to behave accordingly. You know, I need to understand this and take ownership for it, because this is my vehicle that I'm driving through life. And you know, there's a lot of shadows to me that were revealed through human design, a lot of shadow tendencies that were really just mechanics, that were really just they were really just me being me, but that there's a reason why these things were happening. And so it's just a really helpful awareness tool, and it makes it easier to work with kind of the vehicle you have, I guess.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for sharing that, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this topic before we jump into the next? If I can't see you, let's see. Okay, perfect. I wanted to see if there's any other similarities now that all of you experts have kind of heard from the others, anything that jumped out at you about how all these tools are similar and how they all can complement each other and work together. And also, part two of that question is, how can we look at these logical tools, which actually give you the words like I'm this and this is my shadow, the logic side, but also understanding that it has to be an intuitive side to how these tools work intuitively as well. So if that spurs anything, that rambling question I just put out there for anybody, please jump in with any answers or thoughts on that. Yeah, Sherry.
Well, just quickly on that last piece around the intuitive, one of the things that Richard really emphasizes, and it's very interesting to see how people, I've introduced many, many, many people to the Gene Keys over the last 9 years. And because I'm an ambassador for it and I love it. And it's a tool for helping people. But some people will be like, yes, I got the book and I'm reading it. And I'm like, okay, you got the book and you're like gonna just go to it like it's homework, you know? And I'm like, okay, slow down a moment. And the invitation is to be in contemplation. That's Richard's word. It's like contemplation. And he'll also say like pause. I think I want to just share that with everybody. As you're listening to all of us, when we get overloaded with so much stimulation and information and overload, the mind, it's almost like letting the mind just go. Instead of, I'm going to figure it out, let the mind relax and let yourself kind of drop into the intelligence of 5 billion miles of DNA coil. That's like a lot of genius in your body. And in that contemplation, you're pausing. And in that pausing, as Richard would say, a day full of pauses is a day full of wonder. So wonder is the place of creativity and intuition, and the mind doesn't have to figure it all out. And we can actually, he also says, Richard will also name how that actually perfect relaxation is enlightenment. So we're really like in this unwinding.
Yeah.
So I think we can all feel that, like the intuitive capacity is this kind of like really relaxed space of like attunement.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, Karen.
I think that question that you asked is so important because the whole point of all of this is, to take you back to connection with yourself. And so, as you're listening, I mean, I know as I'm listening, I'm hearing pieces in what everyone's sharing that I can feel are like, oh, this would be something good for me to look at for myself next. So we all know what our next steps are in evolution, and your next step is going to be your next step. It's not going to be all of the steps at once. It just doesn't work that way because we can only integrate so much at a time. And for example, with human design, when I first had my reading, I just took one piece, my type as a generator to and I took one instruction from that, wait to respond, let things come to me. And I just did that for a year. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try this and see how things change for me. And it was a huge change. And now, that is integrated much more into my being than it was before, because I just took that one instruction and I applied it as my next step. And it moved from knowledge in the head to embodiment and something that I can then share with others because it's in me. And so I really think that we can all access that knowing inside of ourselves of what is our next step.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. Yes, Susan.
I didn't understand the whole question, and I know you're okay with that.
It was a little rambling, I'll have to admit.
Okay. It's okay. So for anyone else that's listening, and if they didn't get the whole thing, don't worry about it. You got what you got from it and what we're offering. I think what stands out to me is this whole matter of intuition and connection. And our greatest relationship, we all want relationship. I talked earlier, come to think of it, about belonging and community and all of that. But our relationship to what I call our guidance, and most people are like, well, what does that mean? And what's my higher self? And what is my soul? You can't get there mentally. But this feeling that there's a presence, there's a larger dimension. And all of us, I know in this panel, work with that sense of feeling supported and embraced. And all of something invisible is incorporated in what we do is so important that we feel that these days, when we can feel very isolated and alone and as though we don't know where it's all going, Alfie, and all of that, that feeling of being supported by something invisible, whether we call it faith, hope, trust, knowing, is so important. And that intuitive sense in us, any way we can develop that through any of these tools, is just practical magic, in fact. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Great. Well, I think it's a time to get the audience involved, and we'd love to entertain any questions from the audience. You can, I think, Robert, how do you want to do this? Raise your hand or?
Raise your hand. Anyone wishes to ask any questions, please raise your hand and I'll, promote you to a panelist so you can, share your question and people can talk to you directly.
So there's a little button that says raise hand right by their, if somebody's not familiar with that. correct, Robert? Like, right.
Right.
Yeah, it just says raise hand. You just like click the button, raise hand, and then we can,
Correct.
okay. So would love to hear from any questions from the audience.
Well, I definitely want to, say myself that with work that I do, I share all of what you guys have been talking about, except the gene keys, because I'm not as familiar with it. So I'm very grateful that, Rebecca's doing this and you guys are taking your time to share this with us, because it is so important. Because so many times we will criticize ourselves for being different than someone else. But what's so beautiful is when you can start understanding that you are uniquely different, and so is the other people. It's like, wow, this is really amazing, right? And we can be in more of acceptance mode. And if you guys can share any other things with that, can all these methods be done remotely? Denise is asking, can all these methods be done remotely? How would people respond to this? All
I think
thumbs up.
everybody feels that they can be done. Like from what I know about all of y'all, they can all be done remotely. Everything's remote these days. So you've all adapted to doing everything through Zoom or the phone or however. Yes.
Exactly. And so I encourage everyone to look these people up, get Rebecca's course so you understand more of it, what you want to dial into, because it's really pretty amazing. But Sherry, you wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, just to add to just quickly what you just were speaking to, Robert, on that the uniqueness, of everyone's gift. I think that in the culture that we've been raised in, there's a lot of homogeneity, and then there's a lot of judgment of like the other, or you're different than. And when we're really connected, like Susan's been like naming, to our essence, that we actually get to be truly in our essence, our unique gift, like your thumbprint, no one else like you, your voice print, no one else like you, ever, ever, ever. It's kind of mind-boggling. And you're like, this is a miracle in and of itself. And then we get to create synergy with others. And to me, that's the world that we are in the process of creating. It isn't just about like, hey, be tuned into yourself. Hey, that's so nice. It's like, then we're in relationship with others, liberated in our genius and our creativity, and then being able to play and create with others. And like, thank God you're different from me. And ooh, how we get to like, it's like we all are finding our way into the great cosmic symphony where we're like harmonizing with each other. So just as a reminder, because I think our culture has said, kind of when you're different, it's too much, or it's a kind of an edge. And actually what we're saying is that is beautiful. That's really celebrate diversity. And then we are learning together how to synergize those gifts.
Yeah, so what's pretty amazing is that how can we, not have to be this age to start learning things? How can we start bringing it into the homes and young age? Because we're all, the kids are being taught, even like we were, that you need to fit these molds and do these type of things in order to be somebody, right? I mean, how do we change that? And I know, Susan, you wanted to make a comment as well.
Okay. I really appreciate what you brought up, Robert, and what Sherry is punctuating as well about uniqueness, because I think we're hearing this word sovereign like everywhere in the last year. Be sovereign this and be sovereign that. And we can't feel part of the collective, which again is part of what's important in this world. We're coming together more, oneness and all of that, unless we feel sovereign in ourselves. And we feel connected to what our piece is, and that it's not only okay, but it's valued and it's unique and nobody else has it. When we feel that, then we have space in ourselves, in our soul, in our bodies, in our heart to incorporate the uniqueness of everyone else and see that it is, like Sherry said, a symphony that creates the oneness. It's our uniqueness and individuality that actually is the path to oneness versus trying to all be alike. So Yeah.
We're like
be
cells
pretty
in the
big,
body
yeah.
or cells in the body or pieces of the puzzle. And when you come together and when you're owning who you really are, you allow others people to own who they are. And then you come together and you can create this beautiful new world. And that's what we're here to do, is to really wake up, create the 5-dimensional world where we can all be collaborative and we don't need to compete anymore, that we can all have everything versus trying to take something from somebody else, which is not necessary because we're so unique in our own souls. There's no need.
Yeah, great point. Great point. Definitely. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we just, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I just
Were we
wanted to
saying thinking the same
add,
thing? Sherry.
yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Dimitri.
Yeah, truth is, yeah, I got disconnected there for a while. I'm on my cell phone now.
Okay.
So I just want to say I'm really grateful for everyone sharing, and it just brought to my attention something that 20 years ago, that truth is a multifaceted diamond. It's all precious. We have many different angles to the truth, and that we're all spiritual beings. Soul is creative by nature. It seeks its authenticity. It seeks its individuality. And we're living in an age where this is finally possible. And I'm seeing it, for instance, in my grandkids, how just being around an openness allows them to take what they already know. They're wise beings. We're all wise beings by nature. We just need to open to that and to awaken that. And these are tools that give us that possibility.
Oh, perfect. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And this ties so much with Social Chrysalis, which is really based on a lot of the Barbara Marx Hubbard's teachings of coming together to co-create. Once you find your unique genius or deepest heart's desire, which she calls it, then we can really come with others with their deepest heart's desire to really create a beautiful new world. So perfect.
Rebecca, we have a few people wanting to come in to
please.
speak. So we're going to promote Eloise to a panelist here and bring her in so she can ask some questions. So takes a few seconds. Eloise, you can turn on your, unmute yourself for the video and you can ask the questions.
Hello.
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 Don't see you right now, but it's all good. What kind of question do you have?
That's okay. I can hear you. I can hear you.
Perfect.
I am enjoying what I'm hearing. I'm enjoying the human design is interesting, and exploring, taking an aspect at a time and exploring it is I like that concept. I like that concept. I have generator in mind. I have manifestor in mind, and it has been difficult at times for me to, I want to say, wrap my brain around it. And I also like where the sovereignty is concerned. My current phase of life is as a massage therapist. And I have started praying during my sessions. My clients do not hear me praying, but it is something that I am doing. And I had a client tonight who wanted Reiki as well. And when I was trying to incorporate the Reiki, and the reason I bring the sovereignty into it is what I experienced when I was the self-empowerment aspect and the inner peace, there was resistance. And it surprised me and it didn't. And I found that prayer, I incorporated the prayer into it, and it eased things. And she felt better afterwards. And I was just it really helped bring home to me part of what we're all going through. With everything that's been being hammered home with the media and everything else, the impact that it's having. And I think that groups like tonight, it's really important. And taking a step back and going within and taking care of ourselves and remembering being part of a much bigger picture in a healthy manner, not focusing so much on what's wrong, but focusing more on how to take care of ourselves and how to better help others through it as well. And the empowerment that we can help others, that we can assist and support others with as well. Because I don't think that my client had any clue that she had the resistance to simple inner peace, and that she had the resistance to self-empowerment. And that is sort of mind-boggling to me. And I'm grateful that I was able to help her too, in whatever little way that I did.
Yes.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Eloise. Any specific questions you wish to ask any of them?
I am completely new to the Gene Keys, and I didn't get in early enough for any real explanation of that. And I did see a website, but if somebody could talk a little bit more about that.
Sherry, if you want to add to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, Sherry, just I think the website will really get you.
Yeah,
most-
Eloise, I would just really invite you to look at genekeys.com, and then also go to Gene Keys YouTube channel, or to Richard Rudd YouTube channel, and just do a little exploring, and then get your free profile and allow it to unfold, because it's something that it's a self-exploration and conscious evolution journey. And if it calls to you, it calls to you, and it will reveal itself in perfect timing.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Rebecca, I'm gonna bring in Tom, promote him to a panelist as well.
Great, thanks.
So Tom, you should be coming in here. All right, Tom, I was gonna unmute you. And
Okay,
Tom, go ahead. Yep.
Thank you. I was thinking that we have multiple purposes in life. And the real challenge, I think, is to how do we integrate those into something that's much bigger than those different pieces of who we are. And I was wondering what people think of that.
Any of the panelists want to jump in?
Karen.
I do. I agree, Tom. And it's interesting really looking at people's charts, because, you know, you're saying we have different purposes, and we're, you know, and then, you know, I'll look at the chart, say, for example, of my friend who's she's a human design 1-4 manifester. And so her thing is she's a professional dancer, and she really, I mean, she's a mom as well. So there are different aspects of her life, but if you asked her what her purpose is, it's like it's dance and mastery of dance. So she's very single tracked. And there are certain designs that I see that are very much one tracked. It's more like that soul came in to incarnate in one aspect. And then, you know, there's other people, especially like manifesting generators, tend to have their fingers in a lot of pots. And like you know, I channel, so I'm a writer. I have my YouTube channel. I do human design. I teach dance. I teach yoga. And so there's lots of things going on in my life, and I've decided not to make myself do one of them, right? Because that's just not authentic. And so I just wanted to chime in and say that I really enjoy that question, just the question you asked. I enjoy that question. I think it's a fun question. It's a fun thing to just ask ourselves, like, how can we integrate all of these things? And you know, like I'll also meet people that have a 2 in their profile. So if you look up your chart and you happen to notice you have a 2, the 2 is the natural. And like I have had a troubled love life, so I've had a lot of boyfriends, and I've studied them through human design. That's one of the ways I learned about human design. Is so anyway, the which is also part of my design is the love life thing, by the way. So it's all meant to be. But the 2s are natural, so they're like, they're the boyfriend that's like the amazing cook, the amazing photographer, the musician, and the sales guy all in one. And he's really good at all of those things. And it's like a huge relief when a person is multi-talented like that to just tell them it's okay that they be all of it. And that also shows up in the G center. If they have an undefined G center, they're here to wear many hats and to have many different identities. And it's okay to seem schizophrenic to some people, because in one moment you're like a Harley Davidson person with all the Harley people, and the next moment you're knitting with the nannies. And you're still you in both scenarios. So anyway, I think that's a fun question. So thanks for asking.
Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, for that. The way I would respond to that for myself is that I think we are more vast and multidimensional than we realize, and that our culture, even with all the typing tools that we have, and I have like a little rebel archetype in me. So if you try to put me into a little box, like you are that, Sherry, and then it's like, I'm not just that, I'm that, and I'm that. Like Walt Whitman said, do I contradict myself? Well, then I contradict myself. I am vast. I contain multitudes. And when I read that, I was like, oh, thank God, yes. So sometimes people, I'm going to just say this about the human design. People I know who get very attached. Well, I can't do that, Sherry, because I am a reflector. So I can't do those other things. And I'm like, well, maybe you're like limiting yourself, and maybe you actually can do more than you think. So it's almost like there's a fluidity to who we are and how we are, where we are needed, and our evolutionary growth and our capacities. And, it's a really, life is not just the way it used to be with specializations. We're kind of transforming faster than we used to be transforming. So I think that, and I really appreciate what Buckminster Fuller said too, that there's, the role of being an integral generalist is really important in our time of history right now. And so, we will wear many different hats, and that actually that's beautiful.
Any other questions, Robert? Or
Well,
people?
there's a chat here, and it's from Loris, and it's specifically to Karen, but of course anyone else can, chime in here as well. I'd like to ask her thoughts about how to sustain myself financially and in all ways as a reflector. I have studied human design and the gene keys to some extent, and I think it's a challenge for many of the types to radiate and live their type to their full authentic capacity, along with maintaining daily lives. So Karen?
Yeah, Loris, I think we're connected, because just before you entered your question, you were probably typing it. I was thinking of something that was moving inside of me to say, but I thought it might be a little negative. So I decided not to rain on our parade, but you addressed it. But basically, it's been kind of shocking to return to Canada after living in Mexico. And in Mexico, I really created a life that was outside of the matrix, I would say. And so I was very much free of the financial pressure of what is present, really saturatingly present, for at least for me coming back to Canada. I feel it everywhere that people are consumed in just daily life, in paying the bills, in all of the mechanics of the material plane, and having a home and a family and a job. And it it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And so I think that it's, you know, like your question, it's something that is so present on the collective that you are probably also really sampling that as a reflector, like, as because the reflector is a very rare type. It's only 1% of the planet, and they basically are taking they're here to know their environment, their milieu. They're kind of like the barometer of the health of their society. So you're living in a society that is entirely occupied and preoccupied with maintaining their daily lives, and you're asking me, how can you be yourself while you're maintaining your daily life? And that's the question every single, you know, like most people are asking themselves that question. So you are a reflector. You're reflecting the state of our world. And, you know, I think that's a really hard question because, you know, most of us are just on that treadmill and we can't get off of it long enough to really get honest about the fact that it's not working. And so I think COVID has been such an amazing break. But I don't have an answer for you. I wish I did. There is a video on my YouTube channel about the reflector, so you could search that. But I'm asking myself the same thing. And I think a lot of people are asking themselves that question. And I guess I don't know. I just don't have a good answer for you. I have compassion though. I think it's a real question that's on a lot of people's minds. Maybe someone else here has a better answer.
Well, you know, I would like to add that it's so many other different things other than just being a reflector, right? I mean, every one of these, you know, panelists you could drill down and find some of the other things that needs to be worked through to help with all aspects of one life. So I encourage, you know, everyone to do that, right? To get to the fullest. I love all these little tools we have, and we need to use that. So, Rebecca, we should probably start wrapping some things up. If you wish to share anything else.
First of all, I just wanted to thank all of the panelists for just sharing your gifts and your expertise and being a part of this program. So it's just wonderful having you all, and for the audience for showing up tonight. I know you have other things to do, and for Robert for being our wonderful technical guy here, among other things. So wanted to tell you a little bit more about the program. We just barely even scratched the surface from these tools. They really had no time to share, but it was just really just a small little taste of what these tools can do for you. But the program that I'm offering on Social Chrysalis, which is actually discounted, you will receive an email tomorrow, I believe, with the recording of this and a discount code. And it's normally $297 for over 8 hours. I believe it's over 8 hours of programming that's really segmented into little bite-sized chunks. For example, Becca has her whole thing on specialized kinesiology, but I mean, there's over an hour probably material, but it's all in like 8 to 15 segments. And then once you finish the segment, it checks it off so you know exactly where you left off. So you can really get through the program at your leisure, and you can jump around. If you're really interested in human design at the moment, you can go through all of Karen's program and get through that. And then, you know, 2 months later go, oh, I'm now interested in the Akashic Record. So it's a wonderful opportunity to really tap into the expertise of all these wonderful panelists here. and then decide what really is working. You know, what do you want to explore next? And it might be the gene keys, and then you can contact Sherry directly, or some of the other people who really can actually do a reading for you. Or Karen, if you're interested in human design, she could do a private reading for you, and you can contact her directly to really look into what is my design and how do I function best. So on this recap, you'll get the video, an offer to purchase the module on Social Chrysalis to learn more. And I have all the contact information for all of the panelists here that will be on this follow-up email. And I encourage you to contact them individually to, you know, either get specialized kinesiology done by Becca. And again, all of this can be done remote. I love that question because they can all work remotely. So just wanted to close with offering that, and know that you'll get the follow-up. And I just wish you all a wonderful holiday, and hope you connect with other roundtables for Social Chrysalis. Robert, did you want to say something about the next one?
Absolutely. So everyone, these Social Chrysalis roundtables are generally the third Wednesday of every month. And I encourage you to come to them, because it's wonderful to continue the evolution of ourselves, right? And collectively. So the next one, December 16th, is When God Was a Woman, Part 2, with Sharon Maloney, one of our facilitators. If you missed the first one, you need to go back and listen to it, because it was phenomenal. And I guarantee it's going to be amazing. So please come back to that one, because the first one was great. This one's going to be really good as well. So thank you everyone for being here with us. Have a wonderful, Thanksgiving, and the next month, and hopefully we'll connect with you in another month. And panelists, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Oh my gosh.
Thank you, everyone.